let's look for the beginning of the fun. Let's look at little Marco, who is now apparently starting to feel a little concerned about his prospects in the Senate in Florida. Um, the Florida Democratic Party is sort of notoriously anemic, and Florida has not been a terribly uh, electorally sort of ripe area for Democrats over the past couple of decades. But Marco Rubio is feeling it a little bit. This was not, certainly if we were to be talking about this in January, the idea that anything was going to happen in Florida would not even be a consideration. And when you have something like student debt relief, particularly the $10,000 one, although I'm quite convinced that the polling numbers would have been the same if you said 20,000 or 27,500 or something like that, some specific number. But you have over 30% who are in favor of the $10,000 debt relief, and then an additional 35% who would be in favor of even more than that 10,000. That's 65% of the US population, which is at the very least in favor of at least $10,000 student debt. Here is Marco Rubio trying to sort of talk around that in a weird way and suggesting maybe this is a helpful suggestion for people with student debt. Let's hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what most people want. Look, there's three fundamental problems with this. Okay, the first is there's no reform. Let's start with this. I talked about the fact we need to reform student loans. I owed over $100,000.
Pause it for 1 second.
I got elected.
Well, the reality is there is reform to the student loan program. It's now 5% of your disposable income is the limit in which your interest your payments cannot exceed, and they're increasing the amount of what or diminishing, I should say, the amount that is included in disposable income. So the threshold is even lower than it was. You cannot retain debt if you're paying it off more than 10 years, and then it gets forgiven up to, I think, $12,000. There's also provisions that if you maintain payments, that interest will not increase. So there are reforms. It's sort of not necessarily the headline, but there are reforms to this. Again, maybe insufficient, but certainly greater than any reforms Marco Rubio would sign off on.
And what would his reforms be, right? Would be to like increase the proclivity of private student loans, something to that degree. I mean, he doesn't offer any real solutions about that.
Yeah, they just want to
get the federal government out of it altogether, make it more for private lenders.
Exactly. They just want to increase austerity so fewer non-rich kids go to college. That's the reform that they're looking at.
All right, but let's continue. So that was his issue number one with it.
Into the Senate, I had over $100,000 still in student loans that I was able to pay off because I wrote a book, and from that money I was able to pay it. If not, I'd still be paying it. Okay, so that's not about. I think the student loan thing in America is a big problem, and it's broken, and it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be reformed. And I have bipartisan ideas I've been pushing for years to do this. This plan doesn't reform the system. It doesn't change anything moving forward. There'll be people taking out loans right now that will owe them in the future that won't be covered by this. Oftentimes for a degree that won't lead to a job. Number two, that this is illegal. The president doesn't have the authority to do this. He's not an emperor. He can't just with the stroke of a pen cancel $400 billion worth of student loan. And number three, it's unfair. 85% of the people in this country do not have a student loan. They either had one and paid it or they don't have one. And that 85% is going to pay for the 15% who got a tangible benefit. It may be too expensive. Maybe they're paying too high on interest. Maybe they borrowed too much, but they got a tangible benefit from that.
All right, pause it for 1 second. Pause it for a second. So one, it does have reforms that will impact people who are taking loans out starting now. Two, he's not in any way suggesting like how we address this. Like maybe we need to have free college. Will never pass his lips. And of course, Biden does have the authority to do this.
Yeah.
it is it's been quite established. Everybody knows it. The Department of Education can waive loan payments. He never complained when there was a moratorium. If you have the ability to extend a moratorium ad infinitum, then you have the ability to basically just say, we're going to forgive the debt.
That's because the government is the creditor, so they can make any decision that they want. Biden could say, I'm going to cancel all of it. He's not seeking repayment on this threshold.
And to be clear, this is statutory. It is statutory because it was in a law that was passed in terms of the education department having the ability to waive this under the executive's authority. And it was also part of the American Rescue Plan that up until 2025, any loan forgiveness would not constitute a gift in kind for tax purposes. So Congress clearly anticipated the president's ability to do this. And so that has been established. And then what was his third complaint about it? I can't even remember now.
It's not fair.
Oh, it's not fair. You know what's not fair? Everything.
We shouldn't try to cure cancer because people have died of cancer.
Well, wait
in the
a second.
past.
What about the huge numbers of people who don't own a home and rent, and they don't get a tax deduction on their rent? But if you own a home and you're paying mortgage, you get a tax deduction. Well, that's not fair. What about capital gains? You only have the ability to enjoy the reduced rates for capital gains if you have money to begin with. If you don't have money, you will never, ever enjoy reduced rates on the income you make from that money. That's not fair.
Since when is envy by a certain segment of the population some sort of like operating principle for Republicans? They want to make there to be a modern oligarchy. And of course, everyone's envious of wealthy tax breaks, but they don't say, well, that's why we should we shouldn't do those altogether or extend it more broadly to everybody.
Yeah, this is the Life's Not Fair, what do you want, a participation trophy party.
Yeah. I thought that they were not in favor of that.
You know, it also is not fair that legacies get into colleges more often than non-legacies. That's also not fair. I continue.
What you have is people that actually paid off their loans that feel like suckers, people that worked their way to schools to not have loans who feel like suckers, and people who never went to college and are out there working hard to try to make ends meet. And they're open in the newspaper to realize that, people who got these degrees and borrowed a bunch of money.
I'll also add that there's a way you can make this fair too, if you really want, which is to start paying for the earned income child tax credits, or to give those people no cost childcare, or to give these same people you're talking about paid sick leave and paid parental leave. There's a lot of things that Marco Rubio could stand up and actually advocate for.
Reparations
that would help these people.
For past people who've paid off their debt. Say you paid off all your student loan debt. I'm in favor of a program that essentially like helps you retroactively if you were responsible for hundreds of thousands of debt or whatever, you know.
Tax Wall Street and go back and find who's been paying off student loan debt the last decades or so.
Go.
I'm down.
I mean, there's a multitude of things. But this is really, he is advocating for a race to the bottom as opposed to a race to the top, as it were. Continue. Oh, and I should also add that we know in the past, one of the biggest drags on new home construction has been student debt. And so those people who went to those vocational schools to learn to be a plumber or an electrician or a builder of some sorts, this is going to help. This is a policy that is going to help. Bottom line, there is a societal interest in A, promoting education, and B, not having it sink the economy because people can't get on with their lives because they're paying it off for the rest of their lives.
school are having their debt wiped out, but their mortgage isn't, but their expenses aren't being wiped out. In fact, they're going up. So it's unfair, it's illegal, and it doesn't fix anything.
And of course, the solution is for everybody to get elected senator and to sell a book.
Relatable.
I mean, that's not fair. Now, Marco Rubio is not some great literary giant. Why did he get a book deal? Then you didn't.
Many people are saying.
A lot of people are complaining about that. I was going to say me, but I actually
mean,
did.
you actually did
I
write a
did
book.
have a book.
All right,
I
well.
did have a book. But
Braggart.
yep. What are you going to do? So it was a long time ago.
Dude's written a number of books: American Dreams, An American Son, a memoir. I mean, I guess that's
American Dreams: Restoring Economic Opportunity for Everyone.
Is that where he revealed that his father was involved in the Kennedy assassination?
That's Ted Cruz.
That's a cruise.
Ted Cruz?
100 Innovative Ideas for Florida's Future
Episode
was his
6.
first book, but I don't think that paid off his student loans.
I got confused. And now I remember. Marco's the one with the little penis.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry. Ted Cruz.
Thirsty
Ted
and
Cruz.
small.
Ted Cruz hung like a camel.
Ugh.
But Marco. No,
I actually don't
I don't
believe
even know
that,
anything
though.
about a camel either. frankly.
Yeah.
I've never
yeah.
seen
It's
a
just, it's
camel
funnier
penis.
than a horse.
Yeah, I was gonna
More
say.
ethnic.